Do you think fascist leadership can work well in certain cultures? What the f are you on about? What do you mean certain cultures? What do you mean? Work well? Fascism's bad. What are you talking about? It's like asking if slavery works well in some cultures. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you can build a pyramid or two. It's bad. Shouldn't do it. Pyramids weren't actually built by slaves. It's a misconception. Yeah, I preempted you, motherfucker, who built the pyramids. Really talented masons. It's a lot of work. You have to do math to like get the rocks up the ramp. Weren't those masons enslaved for the pharaohs? It's kind of difficult to have people who are both slaves and highly educated masons, you know, stoneworkers. It's difficult to get like to do both of those, you know. I mean, if you want to talk about like effectively slave laborers on ancient works, Great Wall of China, that's a big one. Probably because there was so much of it, you know. I don't think they were slaves. I think they were just like one step above it. I'm not really sure. Panama Canal. I mean, I guess that's like all massive ancient monuments. Yeah, people die all the time when you make big things. I'm also pretty sure slave plus is serf. Yeah, but there is a difference between being a serf and a slave. I mean, depending on where you're a slave, it's complicated. It's complicated. Because slavery then wasn't like chattel slavery after the transatlantic slave trade, because those slaves got treated worse than anyone, basically. Slavery's bad, is what I'm getting at, I guess, mostly. You know, that's like the, I guess... And you can crucify me if you want for that hot take, but I believe it. Given what the Irish went through in indentured servants, they might as well have been slaves. It's not actually true. This is one of those contrarian takes people like to hit on, and I think a lot of people think it's like a solidarity thing, where they're like, yeah, black people were slaves, but also the Irish too, so like, we're all kind of victims, and it's like, well, you are victims, but huge difference, right? Huge difference in severity there. You know? Like, indentured servants were treated a lot better than slaves. Indentured servants had legal rights. They had protection from the law to some degree. They were basically just treated like your shit-ass indentured employees. And, you know, ones with a debt contract. You could do anything to slaves. And you own their kids, too. The truth, honestly, is that right now in the world today, there's still probably no equivalent to chattel slavery. Like, all around the world today, there's nothing even remotely close to the transatlantic slave trade in terms of how people are treated at scale. Like, the degree of suffering. Everyone's here to be contrarian, but I'm accounting for all of this. I mean, I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to do prison labor. Get over yourself. You kidding me? I'd rather spend 1,000 years as a prison laborer than a day as a chattel slave working in the sugar plantation in Brazil or something. Holy shit. No, it's again, like, it's really one of those things where, and they sanitize the out of it for American history books, probably for everyone's, I guess. I don't know why they'd be teaching that shit over in like Germany, I guess, because they didn't do the transatlantic slave trade. They did other stuff. Just really, really bad. Germany actually did as well. The transatlantic slave trade. Look, I'm not here to defend Germans. I just don't think they did that. I mean, maybe some German people did. I don't think the nation of Germany. You know what? The nation of Germany didn't even exist when America was formed. They were still, I don't know, the Holy Roman Empire or something. Maybe. I don't know. Historians haven't figured it out yet. Russia? Yeah, whatever. The Germans did straight up genocide in Namibia. Yeah, you're very woke. Thank you. Everyone with the contrarian take. Vikings were actually bad, just not as bad as the rest of Europe. Well, Vikings took slaves, but again, there's just such an enormous difference in the severity and scale. Like, the transatlantic slave trade was basically like, you know, like, you look at historical death counts from like World War I or whatever. Why was the Holocaust as bad as it was? Well, a lot of it is like the industrial slaughter. The transatlantic slave trade was kind of that, right? It's like, on one hand, you have the misery and death of war, famine, etc., etc. And then you have these like, what if we deliberately build a system to maximize human suffering? What if we built the torment nexus? And you know, not to be woke, but like, slavery was fucked up, man. You said it. You said it. And people don't want to hear it. People do not want to hear that. That's too much for them. They haven't reached that level of enlightenment yet. Me, parentheses, 6 feet tall, slavery was so fucked up, man. Yes! You're gonna get mad pussy in college with lines like that. Reminder, Brazil had way more slaves. Yeah, the transatlantic slave trade was even worse. Well, I don't want to compare two bad bitches, etc., etc. But yeah, no, the systems they had set up in the Caribbean and in Latin America monstrously bad, you know? Also, it was like the same guys doing all of it, right? Like Brazil, that was Portugal. Like we talk about Spain, right? Columbus, whatever. That Portugal's right next to Spain. It's the same guys doing all this, right? How Portugal fall off so hard. Honestly, it seems like Portugal and Spain are both like they kind of lost the colonial war, right? Because you look like France still controls, or at least has influence over, a lot of francophone Africa. Like the West, like all of Latin America. It seems like they've, apart from the language, Spanish and Portuguese, they have like thrown the cloak off, and they're just doing their own thing now. Even the like castizos or whatever across all of Latin America are still not Spanish or Portuguese, even though they pretend to be. I don't know. Spain and Portugal never really invested any of the wealth from their empires into the people. They basically just had like the biggest pile of gold possible in the castle, while the rest of their lands were desperately poor. For a long time, Spain was literally like a king and a navy and a bunch of incredibly poor serfs. Like they didn't like invest into anything. They just bought the navy. That's a massively ignorant thing to say. I love it when people say that without like anything else. No, you always know a motherfucker has a good point when they're like, I think you're really bad for saying that, but they don't say what they think I said wrong. That's how you know somebody's got a really good point. Spain invested in educational institutions, built roads, built infrastructure, cooperated with native polities. I'm talking about the deprivation within Spain, the country of Spain. Like for a significant portion during what we would call, I suppose, the medieval period, they didn't build into. Wait, are you native? Are you saying what they did over in Latin America? A conquistador revisionist? The conquistadors actually wanted to get along with the Aztecs? The crazy thing is, like, you could how there are revisionists who will say, like, actually the British Empire did good in India. Nobody can say that about the Spanish in Mexico because they did nothing. Like, it was literally, they just showed up and everything got worse. Like you can't even begin to make an argument for like, well, they built trains. And that's not legitimate with the Indians either. But like, holy shit, you can't. It's so invalid. What a total lie. Wrong. That's actually insane. Thank God I'm not a debate bro anymore. Here, take 5. But that should be a perma. Defending the Spanish occupation of Latin America is basically like Hitler tier shit. Like, unironically, if you, I'm not saying again, bad bitches, etc. But your control, if you start like leveling out the death tolls, it's pretty damn bad. Yeah, it was like one of the worst things ever, basically. You don't do debates anymore? I just did one. I won it by right-clicking and hitting the button that said 7 days. Undefeated. The colonizers are still held in high esteem in Mexico? Yeah, maybe by their direct descendants who are still pale. What the are you talking about? You think that the indigenous people of like Colombia or Bolivia think highly of the Spanish? As a Mexican, I confirm only the Nazis like the Spanish. Yeah, because they're all Nick Fuentes types. All the most active white supremacists online are like kind of white Spaniards, or not Spaniards, I should say wannabe Spaniards living in Latin America, or like Indians who are not even close to being white. It's pretty pathetic, but they sympathize more with, they see themselves as the conquistadors. The death count was bad, but wasn't a lot of it from disease? Yeah, but a lot of it was also from like the death farms they built. Like the transatlantic slave trade, again, a lot of them went down there, They killed like millions of people directly through forced labor. Like, again, we're really it's like one of the great crimes out there. It's one of the all-time greats. I live in a heavily Latino area of a border state. No one likes the conquistadors here except the pastiest Spanish descendants that make my Norse-descended ass look tanned. Yeah, it's those. They live in Mexico or whatever, or Colombia or some, Bolivia or whatever, and they're very racist against brown and black people, and they think like, oh, I'm the descendant of the greats. Like, I'm the descendant of the glorious European Spanish conquistadors. I'm just like him. He's literally me. And they post like Crusader wojaks on social media. Literally, that's it. That's white supremacy in Latin. People say like racial politics is complicated in Latin America. That's only from the American perspective, where we see all of them as like Mexican or whatever. Whereas in reality, it's kind of the same as it ever was, where like pasty white people, you know, or the wealthier ones, not all white people, obviously, but you know, there's a caste of them, and they sympathize more with the previous colonizers. Lots of them also died being cramped in the ship. Yep, it sucked. How do we get on the slavery is bad topic? I'm looking at this image now and it's reminding me it's kind of a grim topic. Anyone want to be stuck on this for, what, 6 weeks? How long does it take to get across the Atlantic? I don't know. I hate this image so much. Yeah, it probably sucked even more being there, but I haven't been there, so I couldn't say. 3 to 6 months to make the journey? 6 to 8 weeks? Let's just say 5 years. Why not? Like half of them will die before they get there? Yeah, that's food for the living ones. Come on, don't say that. Wait, that's literally what happened. It's literally like the most suffering imaginable. It's just the like every evil thing you could think of, they did that. There's like no holds on it, you know? Meanwhile, there are still, you know, people 6 shades darker than me who pretend to be descendants of the conquistadors posting on social media that the conquistadors were actually like liberating the tribes of modern day Mexico or whatever. And it's like, why, how, in what way? What do they do? They like killed some people, brought down Tenochtitlan, and killed like a bajillion people in the slave trade. I don't know. Anyway, let's get off this topic.